CBSE sample paper 2022-23, the upcoming board examination. The question is from the chapter of semiconductors, class 12. The question is on LED. Okay, first read the question. The LED is heavily doped. It works under forward bias and it emits spontaneous radiation. When it is forward biased due to recombination of holes and electrons at the junction, energy is released in the form of photons. This is what an LED. LED is a small bulb. We know that. In the case of a silicon and germanium, the energy released in recombination lies in the infrared region. LEDs that can emit red, orange, blue are commercially available. The semiconductor used for fabrication of visible LEDs must have at least band gap of 1.8 electron volt. Makes sense. So if the voltage is above generally 2 volts, the LED works, right? So all these colors which you see are above 2 volts. The compound semiconductor gallium arsenide phosphide is used for making LEDs of different colors. Now the question number 1. So this was an explanation of this is a case study we have been given. It is a correct information given in the case study about an LED. The first question about the LED is, why are LEDs made up of compound semiconductors and not elemental semiconductor? I'll just enlarge this so that you can read the question clearly. All right. See, the elemental semiconductors, right? If you use elements like silicon, germanium, and the chemical they generally use is gallium. Okay, so when they say the compound semiconductor, they're referring to gallium arsenide. Okay, so what is the difference? Now, why will you choose gallium arsenide over element like silicon or germanium? The reason is very simple. When the recombination happens, okay, when the recombination happens, and let's draw this. So this is your right P and N, and this is your connection. It works in the forward bias. When the electrons come from the N side, these electrons on the N side, electrons on N side, right, are in conduction band, are in conduction band. So due to the application of the bias coming from the battery, they move to the, so these electrons move towards the P. And then what happens when they reach P? They combine with what? They combine with the holes. Okay. And what level of energy holes are in? They are in the valence band, right? So what happens? The electrons which are moving from N to P, they recombine with the hole and energy is released. Energy is released. Mind you, these electrons were in conduction band. Now they are in the valence band. So energy is released. This energy gets converted into two parts. One is the heat energy. The second is a light energy, right? Light energy. Now, which energy are you interested in? You are interested in which energy for LED? You are always interested in light energy, right? Now, the good part is if you use gallium arsenide, most of the energy that is released, okay, so that this is the energy that gets released. Most of the energy that gets released gets used in the form of light, and very less energy is used in heat. But in the case of elemental semiconductors, if you see this is the elemental semiconductor, what happens is in the case of elemental semiconductor, most of the energy, okay, in the case of elemental semiconductors used to make LED, most of the energy is used to most of the energy is converted to, let's put it this way, it's converted to heat, which is a big loss. What we wanted the energy which is released after the recombination to be converted in light. So in elemental semiconductor, most of the energy is converted to heat, which is a loss, right? And that is why it is better to use gallium arsenide, because gallium arsenide, when you use something like gallium arsenide, most of the energy, most of the energy released during the recombination, most of the energy released during recombination of electron and hole is released, is converted to light. So question number 1 answered. I hope this is making sense to you. Okay. Now the second question, what should be the order of band gap of an LED if it is required to emit light in the visible range? Right. So essentially what happens is the band gap is nothing but the forward bias voltage which you apply. So you can see the band gap is in electron volts, and EV is actually, if you go to the case study, it says the minimum you need is how much? The minimum band gap is visible is 1.8 electron volts, right? So the what should be the order of band gap? So it is asking you the order. All right, so this question is more of memory type of question. So if you go back to your NCERT chapter, what you will find is that for visible range, the value which a safe value of the forward bias voltage for which LED works is around 3 volts. Some books call it 3.6 volts, which means if the minimum order, the minimum band gap you need is 1.8, then the maximum that you give to it is around 3 volt or 3.6 volt. Okay. So, when you give 3 volt or 3.6 volt, the light which gets coming out is blue. If you cross 3.6 and touch 4 volts, it becomes white. So, which is not visible. So, when you say visible, range of the order of the band gap, the answer is from 1.8 to 3 volt as per NCERT. But in some books, you will find it is written as 2 to 3.6 electron volt. A safe answer will be 1.8 to 3 volts electron volt. So answer is 1 point, because they are not asking for forward bias voltage, they're asking for band gap. So 1.8 electron volts to 3 electron volt. That is the correct answer to this problem. Read NCERT very carefully, every line. These case studies are actually being used, are coming from paragraphs of NCERT. So if you know every corner of the NCERT, you will be able to answer the case study question very, very easily. Look into the third one. I will attempt the third one now. A student connects the blue colored LED as shown in the figure. So let's go to the figure. Okay, let's go to this figure. So this is your figure. Okay, let me just enlarge it. And then he connects the key, right? So the switch S is closed. The switch S is closed. You close the switch, but the LED does not glow. Why? The reason is this LED, if you see, this LED, the positive side has got connected to the N side of the LED. And LED, you also show always this arrow, right? Because the light is getting emitted. If you connect a positive terminal with N side of the semiconductor of the LED, it will not, because this LED now is a reversed bias one. So you always connect LED like this. If you know the positive side, always connect the positive side with the P side, which is the triangle side, right? So this is your cathode and this is your anode. And in this question, what you have done is you have connected the cathode. This is your cathode, that has got connected by mistake with the positive terminal of the battery. A cathode should be connected to the negative terminal of the battery, and the anode should be connected to the positive. This ensures that the LED is in forward bias, right? You can read the case study. The case study clearly states that the LED must be in a forward bias mode, right? So let's go back to the case study. The case study says the LED should be forward biased. Only then it emits. Otherwise, it will not emit. I hope this is making sense to you. So this LED in the question number 3 is reverse biased, and therefore there is no light that gets emitted.